Good Friday morning to you. Welcome into Morning JOX. JOX 94.5. Damian Mitchell alongside John Morning as we react to the final game of the college football playoff in the quarterfinal. Georgia and Notre Dame. We had Ole Miss and Duke in the Tax Slayer Bowl as well. And we get the announcement that Jalen Milroe, the quarterback for the University of Alabama, will be taking his talents to the NFL. So we got a lot to react to this morning to start things off. And returning back from the new year, man, you forget what day of the week it is. It's Friday. Woke up this morning thinking like, okay, well, yesterday was Monday. Today's Tuesday. No. It's the day before the weekend. I just got to buckling back into the year 2025. But we had some action last night. Of course, we know the tragedy there in New Orleans postponed the Sugar Bowl kickoff between Georgia and Notre Dame. So if you got off work and you got a chance to catch this ball game, one, it was by far the best game that we've gotten in the college football playoffs so far as competitive nature, especially early on. But it does not go in the way of the SEC as the Georgia Bulldogs fall to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish 23-10. And no Carson Beck for Georgia. Gunnar Stockton gets the start. Overall, he played about as well as you possibly could. He kept Georgia within the ball game, but something that continues to rear its ugly head for Georgia, just the inability to run the football. And it showed up yesterday. One, we have to erase this narrative that Notre Dame does not know how to play in big-time ball games, because this Marcus Freeman-led football team for Notre Dame looks completely different. And this game looked a lot like it did for Georgia the same way they lost to Ole Miss, where Notre Dame was the more physical team in the ball game. And they caused turnovers on defense, and collectively Riley Leonard didn't have to do much. But when he did make plays, it came in like key situations. I think when you look at his stats, his numbers don't necessarily pop out at you. He was 15 for 24, 90 yards passing, and a touchdown, had 14 carries for 80 yards. But all in all, this Georgia team came into the college football playoff. Yes, they were the SEC champions, but they were flawed. And it never really felt like this was the Kirby Smart-led football team that we've seen in years past, where they could just roll the ball out there, be the more physical team, and Notre Dame was just going to lay down. Not at all. In the first quarter, no points were scored. It's both teams in a heavyweight fight, just filling each other out. Then the second quarter, especially right there at the end, the last minute or so in the ball game, is when Notre Dame started to get a little momentum. Georgia goes down, kicks a field goal. Notre Dame answers with a field goal. And then on the next following possession, they cause a turnover. They get a touchdown. They start things off. Riley Leonard with an RPO hits his guy, hits one of his receivers there in the end zone. And then to start the second half, the opening kickoff of the second half, Notre Dame takes it back 98 yards, and it's 20-3. It's 20-3 at that time. Georgia answers with a touchdown. It was 20-10, and in that fourth quarter, it just seemed like Georgia was inching. It's like, oh man, we got him. And then the fourth down start to happen, and Notre Dame gets some key first downs, and Georgia's not able to answer. They get a field goal, and it just seemed like it was an insurmountable lead, because it felt like Notre Dame was in control from that point forward, and Georgia falls 23-10 to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Two things stand out to me after watching this game. The first one is that watching this Notre Dame team, at least in this game, felt like watching vintage Georgia teams and almost Alabama teams, in that they were running the ball, they were wreaking havoc and getting those turnovers, and it may not have looked pretty, and every time it looked like maybe the other team might jump up and do something, they just found a way to beat it down. So what better way to signify that than that crazy 4th-and-1 play where they had that mass substitution?
Yep.
But there was 7-something left in that game, in the quarter, or I guess in the game at that point. And then when eventually Georgia did get the stop, but it was under 2 minutes at that point. So Notre Dame had a sustaining drive of well over 6 minutes to keep Georgia off the field, running the ball no less. So kudos to Notre Dame for being able to do that. And on the other side of that, it's been a long time since I could say that I saw a Georgia team just get run on.
Yep.
Constantly, definitively, and I was listening to Josh Pate on the way in, and I've been thinking this for a while, but he said it, and I was like, okay, it fully makes sense now. If you remember back at the beginning of the year, Kirby Smart was saying how one of the things that we're missing right now is depth. And everyone laughed. They're like, what are you talking about? You're Georgia. You've got a lot of depth. Well, that's what the portal and NIL has kind of changed now, in that, Georgia's still going to get those number one guys, and they most likely will have money. But those number twos that would have stayed and known they would have gotten that opportunity, not saying it's just there, but all throughout college football, they're like, well, I could be the backup, probably get some time, maybe make some money, or I can go somewhere else, generally in the SEC, or at least somewhere I know I'm going to be playing a lot and get money. Yeah, I'm going to go do that. So instead of going to a 2, now they're going to a 3. And that was really kind of evident last night in how Georgia just, for whatever reason, this wasn't just in this game. This was all year. Georgia could not run the ball and could not stop the run at all. And that is something that I can't remember the last time I've been able to say.
Yeah, and to your point, I think this whole Georgia identity this past season in 2024, they haven't gotten to that Alabama level of cachet, I guess you would say, where nobody was intimidated by this Georgia team all season long. It just felt as though they weren't. It's very similar to how Oregon was this season. It's okay, yeah, you may be the number one team in the nation, but are you the best team in college football? Is it just more of a circumstance thing where you've gone out and handled your business like you needed to? You've beaten up on the teams that you needed to. You've won all the games, but it never really felt like there was much separation. And I think this is what Georgia has kind of, they've gotten into in this past season where, the game against Alabama where Alabama jumps on them quick. You fought back in the second half, but you still end up losing that ball game. And then the loss to Ole Miss, it just felt as though, all right, yeah, Georgia's just getting outmanned in this situation, and we never would have thought we'd seen that. But this Marcus Freeman-led Notre Dame team, I mean, outside of that loss to Northern Illinois, they pretty much played the best ball on the back half of their season. After that loss, they turned the corner, and they made sure they buried that tape. They didn't even go back and watch it because Riley Leonard continued to be the leader that they needed him to be at the quarterback position. When asked to do multiple things, he was able to put his body on the line, running the football. The throws that he needed to make, he made. And this Georgia team, I felt it coming into this game. No Carson Beck, and kudos to Gunnar Stockton, 20 for 32, 234 yards and a touchdown. But he was under a lot of pressure. Notre Dame sent multiple guys, multiple plays. Marcus Freeman was not afraid to go man-to-man with those receivers. And some of the receivers for Georgia, they left a lot of change on the field. Dylan Bell had absolute horrific drop there late in that ball game. But Gunnar Stockton put his body on the line as well, stepping in for his first start in the college football playoff. And when you look at the top 4 seeds, every team they had a bye in the first round in the college football playoffs, they all lost. All the conference champions from the regular season lost. So we can talk about that first round matchups, the home series. It just kind of felt like, okay, yeah, if you had a home game in the playoff, you pretty much, locked in for a win. But kind of looking at it, that was all the momentum you really needed. It was, okay, at least we have one more extra game. We had an extra game to get ready, to get our mind right, to get our bodies right for what this playoff stretch could be. And now we have the final 4 teams in the college football playoff set, as Texas and Ohio State will set to do battle in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl. That game on the 10th. And Penn State, yes, the Nittany Lions have found themselves as one of the 4 remaining teams in the college football playoff, as they will take on Notre Dame next Thursday from the Orange Bowl.
And we're going to get a first-time national champion. Whomever wins will be a first-time national champion. No Kirby Smart. No, obviously no Nick Saban. I mean, there are only 2, 3 active coaches, whatever, right now. So we are guaranteed to have one this year. And you could argue that at least 2, if not 3, maybe 4. How many people were saying that this guy's never going to do it here? And while it seems like there are 2 teams that, that you probably put your money on those 2, the way this playoff has been playing, you can't count any of them out.
I mean, you look at the buzzsaw that Ohio State has been on since the playoffs started. They beat the brakes off Tennessee to start things off. They're averaging 41.5 points in playoff games, as they scored 42 against Tennessee, 41 against Oregon. They've been dominant. Texas, they've scored 38.5 points, at 38 points and 39 points against Arizona State, 38 points against Clemson. And for Penn State, You could say hindsight, they've had the quote unquote easiest path to get there after beating the brakes off SMU and dominating Boise State the way that they did. And Notre Dame, they rewrote the history books for Indiana. It's like, hey, we appreciate y'all. Y'all had a great season. This is for the big dogs. And then to step up and match up with a Georgia team and be the better team in the entire game. It never really felt that Georgia was in control. It felt from the jump that Georgia was pressing. When they didn't have a chance to, when they ended up with a field goal there after the big play from Gunnar Stockton, you had to put that ball in the end zone. And it felt as though Notre Dame was like, okay, this is not the Georgia team
No
of years
fluke,
past.
no bad call, no accident. No, the better team, especially in this game, not only won but dominated.
Yep. And I didn't think going into the ball game that I knew Notre Dame would have a little. They were at to fight an uphill battle when it came to the trenches, but that defensive line of theirs, really just the entire defense, played balls to the wall. Like I came away more impressed of the way Notre Dame went out there and handled their business against Georgia, and it raises a lot of question for Georgia. It's like, okay, now the word dynasty was thrown around early on. And now you see, and also takes into it makes, what Alabama and Nick Saban was able to do for 17 years very, very impressive as well, because now you see what it really takes to stay at the top. Anybody that's a champion, they'll tell you, staying up there at the top is the hardest part. And Texas making the jump to the SEC, it felt like, okay, well, can they handle an SEC schedule week in and week out? Yeah, their 2 losses came to the same team in Georgia. And now they still find themselves fighting for a chance to win a national title. Steve Sarkisian, those boys down in Texas, they get a chance to welcome this Ohio State team. And Ryan Day, think about it. Ryan Day was pretty much essentially coaching for his job in the first round of the playoffs. Go out there and beat the brakes off an SEC school. Then you go and get your revenge against Oregon. Now ain't nobody saying a thing about Ryan Day. It's okay. Well, it's pretty much your championship to lose at this point. And just think of
he loses, then all of a sudden, you know what? You always wear a bum. Right, yeah.
And then now the narrative on Penn State, James Franklin can't win a big game. Now the jury is still kind of out, because when you match up with Boise State and SMU to start things off, I think the real test you're going to get with Notre Dame. And for Notre Dame, we ain't got to play in a conference. We're just better than y'all. It's no more debating anymore. It's okay. You can look at our schedule. We ain't played nobody. Woo woo. Have you truly watched this Notre Dame team? And if you hadn't, in the first game that you got a chance to see was yesterday against Georgia, you realize this is not, the Brian Kelly-led Notre Dame Fighting Irish going into this college football playoff. Marcus Freeman has truly put his identity on this team. They're physical. They're led by their defense, and they're asking Riley Leonard, hey, just don't blow it. That's all we're asking. We're not going to put you in situations where you got to throw it for 400-some yards. Nope, we will balance it out with the run game. Jeremiah Love did go down with an injury, didn't return in that ball game, so it'll be interesting to see how they moving forward. But I think the 4 teams that we have now with Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, and Notre Dame, we had conversations about them, especially when the first bracket was released, of, okay, they have a path. All 4 of these teams have a chance. You could argue that they could be national title, could be hosting the national title in the end. And right now, we have the 5, 6, 7, and 8 seed teams in the college football playoff semifinals for a chance to play for a national title on the 20th. And I think it's going to be exciting. We got so much more to get to here on Morning JOX. 205-834-9450. Your text messages, your calls. Get your reaction for the college football playoff. Also going to break down a little bit of Ole Miss's drubbing of Duke last night in the Tax Layer Bowl. And also Jalen Milroe announces that he will be going to the NFL. Where do you think he will be drafted? Do you think he's taking a shot on taking a fly on himself? Is he betting on himself? Should he have stayed back in college for another year? Should he hit the transfer instead to get some NIL money in college? Is he taking a pay cut in the NFL? So much more to get to. Keep it locked right here on JOX 94.5. 6:18 here on Morning JOX, JOX 94.5. Damian Mitchell alongside John Saber this morning from the quarterfinal matchup there in the college football playoff as Notre Dame knocks off Georgia 23-10. Also, another SEC team was up and at 'em last night as Duke and Ole Miss. If you want to say it was a ball game, more power to you, but Ole Miss knocks off Duke 52-20. And that score is a little bit closer than what the game actually looked like. I think at one point in time, Ole Miss was up 52-7. I mean, it's kind of just one of those things. Lane Kiffin won. We had a feeling this could happen. That number, that 17.5, just seemed thick for a bowl game.
Right.
You don't really know how these spreads are going to go. But Ole Miss they had their foot on the gas and they didn't let up at any point. Lane Kiffin, he made it very, very known that he felt as though his team should have been in the college football playoff. Kept saying, that was the ACC's best defense, and we just went out there and, hung 52 on them. He made it known that he was upset with the committee by leaving them out, and to be honest, Lane, I get it, but you could have handled your business in the regular season. A loss to Kentucky was never going to help your argument. Loss to Florida down in the swamp, a wounded Florida Gators team, didn't help your argument.
Pick one.
Yeah, you're right. It's
every other SEC team that got left out, the three that were right there. All you have to do is just not FAFO. It's right there.
Exactly.
Just win one of those games. You had a couple of losses. You had several losses. Just pick one. All right, Alabama, you lose in Tennessee. Okay, fine, I get that. Obviously, that team made the playoff. Top 10 team, just like you. Okay, fine, fully get it. You need to lose to Vanderbilt? Did you need to lose to Oklahoma?
Yeah, yep.
I mean, Ole Miss, did you need to lose to Kentucky? Did you need to lose to, all those, right there, Florida? Didn't have to. Right there. Do all that. You'd have been in, and probably, let's be honest, would have been bounced in the first round, but at least you would have made it.
Well, is it? Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions, this is what you did. This is your fault. Yep. But they did go out there and beat the brakes off Duke. Shout out to Jackson Dart, who finishes his career there on the last game of his career at Ole Miss, 27-35, 404 yards and 4 touchdowns. Ulysses Bentley goes 14 carries, 70 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. Never really felt like Duke had any sort of hope in the ball game. Manny Diaz a lot. For Duke to have a 9-win season, congratulations. But I think all in all, they were just outmanned, outnumbered, and Ole Miss played like they wanted to prove something. They beat the brakes off those boys there in Jacksonville. So not really much to break down from that game, except that this was the Ole Miss that we expected to see all season long. But again, to your point, LSU, Ole Miss, and also Florida, you could have handled your business there. But they did finish it up with 10 wins on the season. So going back to the college football playoff and also getting your reaction on the JOX text line, as always, open 205-834-9450. And a lot of discussion that we saw just, via social media and things like that was, okay, has the SEC fallen off because now they only have one team in the college football playoff, whereas the Big Ten has two with Penn State and Ohio State. We have some text messages coming in and said the SEC looked like crap this bowl season.
Okay, but if Texas wins it all, then what?
Exactly.
So what would that mean? Okay,
right. So. Let's tread lightly. I get it though, but I think that lost to Illinois by South Carolina, a team that was on the outside looking in, felt like they were hitting their hot streak, but they ended up falling to Illinois in their bowl game. Of course, Alabama and the way they performed in the ReliaQuest Bowl against Michigan, a depleted Michigan team. I understand. I get your frustration, but I think when you look at the things that we value in the SEC of how it's so tough to, go out there and win ball games and week to week, that you can't really have an off week because a team like Kentucky can beat an Ole Miss, Vanderbilt can beat an Alabama. I think when you look at the totality of it all, again, it's the consequence of our own actions. This is just what the SEC does. We'll beat up on each other, and then once we get into a situation like this where, teams have been battle tested. I think that, the tread of an SEC schedule can wear on you in situations like this. And granted, Texas had one of the easier draws of the SEC schedule when you look at how, literally the only 2 losses that they have came to the SEC champions in Georgia. And then Georgia goes out and they fall into Ole Miss. They fell to Alabama. So when the wear and tear, hell, you go back to Arkansas. Arkansas beat Tennessee. One of the biggest question marks, still one of the biggest question marks of how did this happen? And they ended up beating Tennessee in the regular season. Georgia knocks off Tennessee in the regular season. So I think in totality, because the Big Ten was kind of just led by the Ohio States, the Oregon, the Penn State, they didn't have to, they didn't have to play each other. Well, Oregon and Ohio State did. Penn State didn't have to play them. And I think that when you look at what they had to go through and the fact that they had, you look at the draw and the layouts and the brackets in which they had to play, Penn State kind of has the benefit. They got the luck of the draw. It's okay. Well, we didn't necessarily ask to play SMU to start it off. Okay, then we'll take that. The committee put Boise State in the first round. I mean, the second round bye. So not really our fault for going out there handling our business.
And to look at something else aside from what Ole Miss and the SEC has kind of done, that has kind of, that's been the narrative now, and that people are wanting to, or feels like the masses are wanting the playoff format to change, in that, oh, should have been the 12 best teams the first time, and give the top 4 teams the byes no matter what happens. Okay, fine. I get, yeah, that's how it should have been, but we only got the playoff because there had to be a compromise.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. We only got the 12-team expansion this year. It was supposed to wait at least, I think, through 26, if not sometime. I don't remember when it was supposed to look into, but we only got it this year because the bylaws say that you can only change it if all the conference commissioners at Notre Dame agree. So will it happen, for next year? Maybe, maybe not. But if you're Boise, if you're Indiana, if you're SMU, if you're those lesser teams and conferences, why would you want to change it? Like, this worked. You got your shot in the playoff that nobody honestly thought you were going to get. Granted, yes, you ended up falling on your face, but you can't help that. That's not up to the commissioners. The commissioners is supposed to put the teams in their conference in the best position to try and win it all.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as we'd all like to see it, I don't know if we're actually going to see it, at least not next year.
Mm-hmm.
The question of whether or not we'll see it anytime soon, I don't know, just because if you're those lesser teams, if you're the Mountain West, if you're the American, why would you want to change this?
And I think the committee is going to have to truly iron out what they expect when they start to place these teams. And even when you go back to some of the losses, like Miami had this argument of, all right, we fell to 2 unranked teams. Well, the first time we lost to an unranked team, I think they only fell like maybe 3 spots. And then when they lost to Georgia Tech, they fell down 6 spots. And when Alabama lost to Vandy, I think they fell like 4. And it's, okay, how are we truly weighing these losses anymore? Because, SMU got the benefit of the doubt. They necessarily weren't punished for losing in a championship game, but the only 2 ranked teams that they played all regular season, well, when they lost to BYU at that time, they were a ranked team. They fell out. So I think there has to be some sort of, they have to stick to their guidelines and be consistent week in and week out. And I think that's difficult. That's going to be difficult because of where they place a lot of these teams. Like, we had Army for so long as them being undefeated for a major part of the season, but they were on the outside looking in pretty much every single week. And how much value do you bring in when you start to rank these conferences? Okay, are you telling me now looking at it, do we think that the Big 12 champion in Arizona State necessarily deserve the bye? Does a Mountain West champion now, are they going to have a discussion of having a bye after what happened this past season with Boise State and Arizona State? So I just think the committee as a whole is going to have to iron a lot of these details out. I mean, Indiana got in as an at-large, Tennessee got in as an at-large, but you couldn't have looked at their schedule, especially for Tennessee. You can look at Tennessee's schedule and say, okay, yeah, like they've been battle tested. They've been playing a lot of ranked teams, and of course, that loss to Arkansas was questionable. But then you lose to a Georgia team at that point that was starting to figure themselves out. They ended up being in the college football playoff, and then ended up winning the SEC. So I just think when you look at the whole landscape of the 12-team playoff, maybe some of the seedings didn't really pan out the way that we expected it to. But now we have a definitive conversation of the 4 teams that are playing for a national title, for a chance to play in a national title right now, could arguably say that they are the 4 best teams in college football. And they've gone and handled their business in the way that they have.
And I know it feels weird because when you see the teams and the numbers they have next to them, remember, that's their seeding, not their ranking.
Exactly.
The teams that are playing right now, according to the College Football Playoff Committee, are 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Yep.
So we have, granted, the bottom 4, but we have 4 of the top 6 teams still left in this tournament. And so I think more or less the committee ultimately got it right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a shame that most likely your 2 best teams, at least up until this point or throughout most of the regular season, they've got eliminated. But we see that in postseason tournaments all the time. Your boy, Eli Manning, is only really potentially a Hall of Famer because of what he did in the postseason. Their regular season wasn't all that much to write home about. But
True.
when it mattered most, when in the postseason, we be honest, we put more emphasis on that. But like we saw with Quinn Ewers, when it mattered most and when it came down to crunch time, they turned it on then. So kudos to these teams to be able to make it. And so I think ultimately the committee might have gotten everything right, because the teams that we got right here are the ones that we kind of expected. And honestly, I'm kind of glad that we have the expansion, because looking at where it was, honestly, at least one, if not 2 of these teams would not have even been in a 14 playoff had we not had the expansion.
We not had it. Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, Oregon would have been in. I'm pretty confident Georgia would have been in, having just upset Texas. So your other 2 spots would have been between Texas, Penn State, and Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure Notre Dame probably would have gotten one. Yes, they had the Northern Illinois loss, but the way they won and kind of beat everything else, and yes, sitting at home, conference championship weekend might have been that may have pushed them out, and that may have been trying to send a message. But then who are you leaving out? Are you leaving out Texas or Penn State because they both just lost to a top-ranked team? So overall, it may have been weird, the path that we got here, but I think ultimately we're getting everything right.
Yeah. And the teams that we, like you said, the teams that we kind of expected to have at least a conversation in it, they're the 4 teams still playing. I mean, Texas, no matter how you slice it up, yeah, they lost to Georgia twice. But when you watch this Texas team, you can't say that they're not one of the better teams playing, because when they're on, they're on. I think, question marks around Quinn Ewers, but everything else they've played like they've needed to. You look at Penn State. Yeah, they failed to Ohio State early on. I mean, granted, Oregon got blown out by the same team that they had beaten in Ohio State, but Ohio State, with the best roster that money could buy, has found themselves in this situation. And the return on investment is showing here on the back half of the season, and when you need it the most. Ohio State, Penn State. You look at Notre Dame again. That questionable loss to Northern Illinois, you can't shake it. It happens. It's the only blemish on their record. But they've gone out and handled their business week in and week out. And then when they needed to turn it on in the college football playoff, they continue to. Big John texted in. He has a question. Do you think the SEC dominance is over? No, I do not. I think that maybe the teams may have, the teams that are at the top, or quote unquote should be at the top, may be changing form or maybe changing names. But the SEC is still the best conference. Now, I mean, you still have Texas playing for a chance to play for a national title. If they beat Ohio State, then yes, the conversation is still going to be going on. The SEC is still the most dominant conference. But I do think the playing field's changed when the NIL and transfer portal, because now these teams, it's free agency pretty much year in and year out. Every team is going to look different. You look at, Ole Miss. I don't think Ole Miss is going to drop off. Lane has been the portal king for the past couple of years. It's just, can he finally get over that hump? Do we still think LSU is worth the conversation? I think, if Kalen DeBoer gets it right at Alabama, hell, even Auburn, if Hugh Freeze finally gets it all together, they're still going to have a conversation.
Tell me what's standing out about the following teams I'm going to rattle off: Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Auburn, Texas A&M, LSU, Michigan, Florida, Tennessee. That's the top 11 right now in 247's recruiting rankings.
Boom. Yeah.
So
things may change, but
honestly, the SEC is seemingly rather down this year. Again, Texas wins it all. We're still going to say that. And yeah, it's not that necessarily down. They've always been rather competitive. Mm-hmm. It's just there's no elite team this year, or so it seemed. Now, granted, Texas wins it all. I don't know if we'll say they're elite, but it seems like there's just been no standout 2019 LSU, 2020 Alabama.
Right.
There's been no 21-2 Georgia. There's been no, okay, yeah, we know that is, if not the best team, at least one of the two best teams.
Mhm.
We thought it was Oregon, and they ended up losing. Every other team that was in this playoff didn't just have one like that, multiple losses.
Yep.
So it's just the SEC probably this year maybe took a step back. But again, with the recruiting rankings seemingly like where they are, let's take a pause and see, because everyone felt that in 2014 when Ohio State look what they did.
Mhm.
What happened after that in 2015 and 16 and 17 and 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 and yeah. Okay.
It still goes through the SEC. If you want to be a champion, still go through the SEC. So I do not think the SEC dominance is over. I think we have established that we are here to stay. 205-834-9450. Your text message, your calls. All John's going to keep the conversation going on the other side. Also take a look at Jalen Milroe, the quarterback of Alabama, announcing that he will be drafted. Do you think he's taking a fly on himself? We'll keep the conversation on the other side. Keep it locked right here on JOX 94.5. .638 here on Morning JOX, alongside John Saber, recapping the quarterfinal matchups in the college football playoff as the semifinals have been set, as Penn State will be taking on Notre Dame next Thursday from the Orange Bowl down in Florida. And then in Dallas, we have Texas and Ohio State on
feels
Friday.
A little semi-home advantage there.
Yeah, semi. Ohio State opens up as a 6-point favorite there in Dallas. Vegas knows something. And right now, early on, Notre Dame is a 1.5-point favorite over Penn State. Let me tell you about my buddy Ben Hedden of the BHAM Realty Group. You think about selling your home, and when it comes to selling, you only want excellence. You need to give my buddy a call at 205-568-2705 or go to bhamrealtyco.com. If you're struggling to get your house sold because the markets are changing every single day, you need an expert that focuses on adapting at half the time to make sure you and your squad come out on top. That's my big dog, Ben Hedden, 205-568-2705, or you can visit their website at bhamrealtyco.com. Getting your reaction here on the phone lines, 205-834-9450. Luke from Highlands texts in. He says, I think Jalen Milroe will go somewhere in the second or third round. I think whoever picks him up will get a real steal. He has so much talent, and with the right program to develop him, I think we will see him be a serious threat in the future. Yeah, I think that Jalen Milroe, I had never seen a quarterback take such a big step back, because when he's on, one, you cannot doubt his athleticism with him running the football, what he's able to do with his legs. But I think the biggest question mark is just, can he become more consistent and more accurate throwing the football in key situations? And I think that what we saw in the bowl game is kind of a microcosm of how season is. When he's on, he's one of the best athletes. He's one of the more special talents that we've seen in a long time at the quarterback position. But he's got to be able just to hit the routine. He has to be more accurate. But also in the NFL, the way that the structure is now, you've got to be able to put that thing on the rope. Maybe the system could be interesting wherever he lands if you can build it towards him. Because think about how Anthony Richardson is with the Indianapolis Colts right now. Now, one, he can't stay healthy, so you can't really find a true identity with him. But he's inaccurate as all get out. But when he uses his legs, having Jonathan Taylor in the backfield does help, but yet the Colts are still finding themselves just trying to find a playoff spot, and really and truly with the way that they play, they're not going to be able to get there. But I think for Jalen Milroe, his development, one, of course, having Nick Saban, having all these offensive coordinators that you've had, I can't really make that excuse for him, because every quarterback that has played for Alabama in the past 17 years pretty much has gone through this cycle of, it doesn't matter who's calling the plays. It's up to your ability to go out there and play ball. No, I don't think he's as accurate as Tua. He's not as polished as a quarterback as Jalen Hurts was. Yes, Jalen jumped to Oklahoma and got with Lincoln Riley and continued his development as a quarterback. But I don't know. I don't know if Jalen Milroe is going to – he's not going to be able to out-athlete anybody in the NFL, because, those guys got mortgages on the defensive side of the football. When you got Jeff Simmons screaming down you in the defensive line, you got to make somebody miss. I do think, pound for pound. Now, again, maybe he goes into the NFL and lights it up, but I just think on the surface level, it's going to be difficult to see that he has a long, illustrious career in the NFL just early on, because of what we've seen, the inaccuracies, the inconsistency that we saw in college.
According to Mel Kiper, I think he has him as his third best quarterback. So I was like, oh, okay, fine. So I get why he's going. But Mel also said on that draft podcast with him and Field Yates and Greeny that he would do better transferring somewhere and with another year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I know he get drafted. I'm pretty sure it would be the first round. It might be I'm not saying he would have this career. Might be a Lamar situation in that I'm pretty sure Shedeur and Cam Ward are going to be 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Beck or Rourke or someone like that jumps up to maybe be that third one. But Milroe looks like if he goes in the first and maybe kind of late, someone trades in to get him to that way they can have that fifth-year option. But I do get the sense that, especially the way he played, I think he had 9 of his 14 turnovers in the last 3 games, 3 apiece in his last 3 games. He not only would do well to maybe have another year under maybe just someone else just for a different system, but also just to kind of polish everything else, because it is starting to feel Anthony Richardson-like.
Yes.
That talent in theory is there. Like, you've got the raw tools. It just needs to be molded properly, and not that Kalen DeBoer is the wrong one to do it. It just in 1 year may not have was just going to happen. I mean, he had at least 3 with Penix, 2 at Washington and 1 in Indiana. So he had some time with them. So maybe another year in Milroe's system, or excuse me, in DeBoer's system might help him. But is he going to? Well, Alabama will want that. They may just be like, like we need to move on and do what's best. But I get why he's going. But also, you might do better to come back and probably pull a Janai Broom. Like you could go and you'd be drafted okay, but come back, dominate, and then be like, all right, how you like me now?
Exactly. 205-834-9450. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's talk to Larry, who's on the road, wants to talk some ball with us this morning. What's going on this morning, Larry?
Gentlemen, guys, enjoy the show always. Just want to make a comment. And just, guys, I'm sure you'll agree with me, but majority of the, I'm going to say not majority, but all the quarterbacks in college football would love and dream to have the arm strength and the legs of a Jalen Milroe. Would you not agree or disagree?
Oh, absolutely.
Come on. And but what's amazing to me is if you'll watch him in numerous games, and I know y'all watch every game, when he's not under pressure and he's in the pocket and no one's coming at him, he seems to make the necessary throws. Not always, but majority of the time. But when the pocket breaks down, he just goes all to pieces. Would y'all agree? Obviously. I mean, it just amazes me.
That's all quarterbacks.
I would, but that's not
exclusive name of the game.
To him. It's kind of hard for anyone to do that.
Yeah, but that's true. But I mean, obviously with his speed, golly, he's so extremely fast. But guys, I know. Obviously, John, I wanted to ask you this, both guys. But how long technically has the NIL and the collective been in effect now? Has it been 2 or 3 years now, so to speak? I don't know.
I want to say this is its third year, but I could be wrong because if I remember, the first one I remember hearing about was Bo Nix.
Yeah,
because he had. I want to say he signed, what was it, Milo's or Guthrie, some kind of something like that, January or July 1st. Like, he was the first deal I remember seeing, like 12:01 midnight popping up. So maybe we just finished our third year and going into our fourth.
But all I know, guys, is that, Bama's and Georgia's and the LSU's, Tennessee, they were dominating recruiting, but somebody told me through the grapevine, and obviously I'm sure it was printed, that the Michigan quarterback that went from LSU to Michigan, he's been promised how much money? Y'all know what I'm talking about?
It was.
I don't know the exact amount, but I feel like it was 8 figures.
Yeah, it was somewhere in the millions.
Yeah.
And I just think that, the SEC dominance, I don't know if it's going to be over or not anymore. So I don't know.
I get that, and
we
thanks
appreciate
for the call,
you,
Larry. But, I mean, I rattled off the 247 rankings earlier, and yeah, okay. Michigan is in there. They were, I think, 9. Granted, this is just 247. They're other, and they do have according to them, the number 1 overall player in Bryce Underwood, the guy you mentioned. Again, pay me $10 million. Like, who was it? Was it Shay that said, you pay me $50 million, I'm going to hell? Yeah. So I get it. Yeah. But here are your 247 top 11 rankings: Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Auburn, Texas A&M, LSU, Michigan, Florida, Tennessee. That's 8 of the 11.
Yep. So, SEC and Big Ten. It's the haves and the have-nots. If you got the piggy bank, yeah, you're pretty much still going to be in there. Let's go to Rob in Trussville real quick. What's going on, Rob?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I wanted to mention, why didn't the service academies get more of an opportunity when you consider Army's record, for an example, but they also, like SMU and, some of the Indiana teams that they probably may have fared better than in the playoffs. I don't think they got a fair shake.
I mean, in that situation, do you think the ACC, which conference do you think pound for pound is better, the ACC or the American?
It depends on what day, I guess. And I guess in a way that, and maybe this is just me, that those guys are going to be our next war fighters. And I noticed that, of course, Vanderbilt, that's a tough school, that kind of stuff. But it's not type of a play-in or something to give them an opportunity. Them are going to go be playing pro football. They can't take NIL money, and they managed to have a season like they did without taking $1 of NIL money. They're not allowed to because they're going in the military.
No, you're
Yeah, I mean,
you're
it's a
true.
great.
No,
Yeah,
We're
I
up
mean, it's a
against it.
great
Thanks for the
sentiment.
call. But that being said, like we said earlier with Kiffin and with South Carolina and with Alabama, they handle their business. They're in this playoff.
Right.
I mean, they were what Army was ranked in the last one, 22, 23. I mean, Army was right there. They were a ranked conference champion when all said and done, right?
Yeah.
So if granted, I know each of them lost to Notre Dame, so that kind of pushed it away. But if we were talking midway through the season that all one of these teams would have had to do, we could have an undefeated Army v Navy, and because they would have met in the American Conference Championship, and had they been undefeated or one loss to Navy, or excuse me, to Notre Dame, they very well might have had their opportunity.
So I get it, and there are seasons like this where, I mean, to be honest, if you watch Notre Dame play Navy and Army, you saw the separation. You saw the separation. 205-834-9450. Receive on hold. We'll get to you in return here on Morning JOX 94.5. 6:53 here on Morning JOX. JOX 94.5. Damian Mitchell, John Saber here with you for a few more moments as we get you set for McElroy and Kublik. Morning, let's wrap up. Let's do some rapid fire here on the phone lines, 205-834-9450. Let's go to Rick in Birmingham wants to talk with us this morning. What's going on, Rick?
Hey, guys. I was just going to comment on a previous caller talking about the NIL and collective deal. The problem Alabama has is we don't have the billionaires that Michigan has.
Mm-hmm.
There's no Dave Portnoy sitting out there with $1 billion that can throw an 8-figure deal at a quarterback or at someone, and we're always going to play from behind. And so we're going to have to win in high school recruiting to compete in the free agent market with the kind of rates that have been set.
Yep. Hey, we agree with you, Rick, man. It's the haves and have-nots. If you ain't got the bank account, so be it, brother. There's a clear separating factor. Don, you got about 30 seconds. What's going on, Don?
Hey, how bad is Jalen Milroe? Ty Simpson, that Jalen Milroe didn't even give him one single chance as bad as he played all year.
Man, how bad is Ty Simpson if he can't get on the field as bad as Jalen Milroe has been playing? Listen, everybody wants to talk about Ty Simpson getting out there. Go back and watch the USF game when Jalen Milroe didn't start a couple years ago. Just saying, the grass ain't always greener. And we don't see practice all the time, so –